Good morning. We are about to get started on 6th and 7th period Algebra 1. There's Blake and Brian and Drake. Hey, Drake. So y'all have some paper and pencil ready so you can write some things down so you don't have to go back and watch this later. But it's good if you go back and watch it if you need a little refresher. I'm going to wait just a minute. I got to get my laptop set up and then we'll get started. I didn't get to do any schoolwork yesterday because I was busy helping to get a tree off our house. I can't do anything about that shadow up there, but hopefully you can still see. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. Let me make sure that that's clear. Y'all know whenever you respond to me on this, it's delayed. I don't see your comments for a few seconds. So if I don't answer you right away, that's the reason. Uh-oh. Hang on. I lost my page on my face. I have to get back. Kay Ivy interrupted my video of my class. Just a second. All right. It is clear. Maybe it's going to stay that way. So let's get started. The last thing that we did, well, before I get started on this, I just want to talk to y'all for a second about your grades. I'm going to be entering grades today and tomorrow to get everybody updated. You'll be able to check iNow and look at your 4th 9 weeks grades after tomorrow once I get everything put in. And it looks like you're doing well. I've checked to see the quiz grades are doing really well. Just keep up the good work. Make sure you're really learning. This is going to be important stuff for your future math classes. All right. Oh, and also, your quizzes, your IXL grades, everything's going to count equal. It's not like it was when we were in school where the tests are weighted differently. Everything's going to be counting equal. It's all out of total points. And the grades really for the 4th 9 weeks are just going to, they're starting with the 3rd 9 weeks grade, and we're putting that into the 4th 9 weeks, and then it's just going to go up from there. It won't be coming down any, so y'all hopefully will be in good shape. I just want you to learn, so make sure you're learning. Make sure that if you don't understand something and you've watched the video and you still don't get it, let me know, and I can do some one-on-one video calls, and you can turn your camera off. We don't, if you don't want, like if you don't want to get dressed or something and you don't want the video camera on, you can turn it off and just talk to me, and then we can go over problems together. I've done that with a couple of people, and they've understood it after I've gone over it with them one-on-one. So just let me know. Send me a message on Teams if you don't understand something, and we can go over it again. All right, let's get started. Last thing you did was learn how to find the GCF, the greatest common factor of a polynomial. And if y'all haven't done that lesson yet, the one that I believe we did on Thursday, you need to do that, the one where we first learned how to find the GCF. So today it says we're going to factor a polynomial by factoring out the GCF. So you have to start with knowing how to find it, and then we have to do the rest of the factorization. The review, just to make sure you know, GCF stands for greatest common factor. And so let's go over how to find this greatest common factor. If your problem is 16x to the second plus 12x, your GCF, remember you look at your two numbers, 16 and 12, and you find the largest number that will divide evenly into those. That's the greatest common factor. And the largest number that will divide into 16 and 12 is 4. So you write your 4 down as part of your GCF. And then you look at the letters that they have alike. They have to have the same letter. And then you always use the lowest power of that letter. So 4x would be your GCF of that problem. And that was what our last lesson was on. Now we're going to take it a step further, and we have to factor. And remember, we've talked about what factoring means. If you factor something, that means you're showing what to multiply by. So like if I told you to take 10, that was your answer, and I wanted you to factor it, that means I want you to show me the multiplication problem that gives you 10. And one of them would be 5 times 2. And that's what factoring is, and that's what we're doing. It's just we're having to use algebra expressions, which involves variables. So look at example 1. It says factor. Okay, so that means we're going to have to show what to multiply together to get 3n squared plus 6n. And you start with your GCF. You look at your terms. You've got 3n to the second plus 6n. And you want to factor out. When I say factor out, that just means write down the GCF between those two terms. Okay, I'll give y'all just a second to think about what the GCF would be. You have 3n squared plus 6n. The largest number that will divide into 3 and 6 is 3. And then you look at your variables that they have in common, and you write the lower power, which is n, and 3n is your GCF. Now, the rest of what factoring is you've got to show in parentheses what to multiply 3n by to get 3n squared plus 6n. This is really the distributive property backwards. Okay, so you've got to tell what would I distribute 3n to? What would I multiply 3n by to get 3n squared plus 6n? And that answer goes in the parentheses. So 3n would have to multiply by another n to get 3n squared. Because remember, you add your exponents when you multiply. So 3n times n gives you 3n squared. Now, what would you have to multiply 3n by to get 6n? It's just 2, and you put the plus sign because plus is right here. Okay, so check with the distributive property. 3n times n is 3n squared, and 3n times 2 is 6n. And that's all you do. That's your answer. That's the factored form. Do y'all understand that? If you got that, just say yes. Or you can like it. You can give me a like sign or a thumbs up sign. And then we're going to move on. This is really delayed. I'm going to move on because, okay, somebody's commenting. Blake, yay. Thumbs up. Alright, so let's move on to example 2. All of these really are like this, except, there may be a few that may be a little confusing to you with with variables and things. So I'm going to go ahead and go through several examples just to make sure you have it. So you have 12n to the third minus 8n to the second, and you want to pull out the GCF. So always start with the GCF. The GCF between 12 and 8, the largest number that will divide into 12 and 8 is 4. And then you look and they both have n's, so you have to include an n with your GCF, and you use the lower exponent, n to the second. So 4n to the second is your GCF, and then you always put a parenthesis behind it, and now do the distributive property backwards, which means you're just dividing each of these terms in the problem by your GCF. So 12n to the third divided by 4n to the second is what we're doing to put the answer here. Now, most students like it better by saying, what do I have to multiply 4n to the second by to get 12n to the third? And it's 3n. Okay, and then just check it once you've written it down. 4n to the second times 3n is 12n to the third because you add your exponents. So when you're dividing it, if you're thinking of it as in division form, you subtract the exponents. Whatever this exponent is on the outside, you just have to make up the difference of it with this one to make that third power. Bring down your minus sign. Now what do you have to multiply 4n to the second by to get 8n to the second? And it's just 2. If you're thinking of it in division terms, it's 8n to the second divided by 4n to the second. And the n to the seconds just cancel out, and you divide 8 by 4 and get 2. It's just whichever way your brain works on how you think of these. And that's your answer. Now, I will tell y'all to make sure, let's just say someone didn't recognize that 4 was the largest number that went into these, and they put 2 down. When you divide 2 into each of these, you're going to get something in your parentheses that also has a common factor. And you can't have a common factor between your terms and your parentheses, or you didn't pick the highest one. Alright, so to show you what I mean by that, because some of you may do this sometime. Let's just say that someone on that problem on example 2 put 2n to the second down for their GCF. Then when you divide 2 into the second into those, you would get 6n minus 4. And 6n minus 4, 6 and 4 have common factor of 2 in it. That would let you know that you didn't pick the highest one. You can't have a common factor in your terms that are in the parentheses, or you didn't choose the right GCF. Alright, let's go on to example 3. Let me slide this up a little bit. Okay, on example 3, you have 2k to the third minus 10k. So you want to factor out your GCF. So the largest number that will divide into 2 and 10 is 2. And then they both have a k, and you have to use the lower power, which is just k to the first. Now you're ready to put your parentheses and divide. And when you divide 2k to the third by 2k, the 2's cancel, and you subtract your exponents, and all you get is k to the second. Now if you're thinking of it the other way, what do you multiply 2k by to get 2k to the third? And it's just k to the second. If you want to put a 1 in front of the k to the second, you can do that, but there's not really any need. Move on to your next term, and 2k times what is 10k, and it's just 5. Put your minus because that's a minus in the problem. So k to the second minus 5. Remember, always go back and check with your distributive property. Before you enter it on your IXL, I would recommend always looking and checking, making sure that you use the right letter, the right sign before you hit enter. Alright, next, example 4. We have 14v to the second plus 12. So again, you want to find your GCF, which is the largest number that will divide into 14 and 12. And the largest factor that they have in common is 2. Now look at these. These two terms don't have a common variable because this 12 does not have a v with it. So you cannot list a v as part of your GCF. All these other examples we've done, both terms had the same letter, so we included that with our GCF. On this one, 12 has no v, so you don't include a v. It's just 2. And then you put your parentheses behind it, and now you're ready to do your distributive property backwards. So what do you multiply 2 by to get 14v to the second? And it's 7v to the second. And then plus, because this is a plus, what do you multiply 2 by to get 12? And it's 6. So 2 times 7v to the second plus 6 is your answer. Alright, everybody good with that? I'll just pause for a minute to make sure there's no questions. Remember, there's about, I would say, a good 10-second delay on this. So if you ask a question, I can't see it for a few seconds. Alright, let's move on to example 5. We're going to factor 18x plus 15. I'm going to give y'all just a second, see if you could do that on your own, and then I'll show you what the answer is. 18x plus 15, we want to factor that. It is easy, Blake. I'm glad that you think so too. Alright, the GCF here, I hope you brought out a 3. 3 is the largest number that will go into 18x and 15. Again, these two terms do not have, they don't share an x, so you cannot include an x in your GCF. It's just 3. Put your parentheses, and then 3 times 6x plus 3 times 5. So you should have 3 times 6x plus 5 for your answer. Alright, let's see. Let me see if there's any more. Oh yeah, we have 8 total examples here. What I do when I'm making out your examples is I go through your IXL lesson myself just to make sure that I've shown you every possible type problem that they could give you up to the 80 point. And most of these are, you know, similar. There's little bitty things that are different about them, and that's why I did them all. So let's finish these last 3 examples. We're going to factor 5a to the third minus 12. Okay, this one's different. Y'all tell me, what is the GCF in this one? 5a to the third minus 12. If anyone knows, just type in what you think the GCF is of 5a to the third minus 12. No answers. I will tell you, the GCF is only 1. There is nothing that will divide into 5 and 12, and they don't both have A's, so you can't really factor that. If there is no GCF in this problem, then you cannot factor that. You just need to write the problem in again. On IXL, that's what they're going to tell you to do, is just to rewrite that problem if it can't be factored. So you're just going to type in 5a to the third minus 12 exactly like it is. That's all you can do. Because, and I'm going to write it here in case you need to look back to see why. Because the GCF is 1. There is no GCF you can pull out. You just rewrite the problem. All right, example 7. Now this one, 16x to the second plus 3x. This one has no GCF in the numbers, 16 and 3. There's nothing that will divide into 3 and 16 other than 1. But they do both have an x. Like this one up here, they didn't both have an a, but they do both have an x here. So you have to use that x as the GCF. And remember, use the lower power. So x is your GCF. And then you put the parentheses. And then what do you multiply x by to get 16x to the second? And it has to be 16x. X times 16x is 16x to the second. Put your plus down because this is a plus. X times what is 3x? And it's just 3. And that is your answer. And our last one, 39g to the 5th minus 13g to the 2nd. We're supposed to factor that. So you want to pull out your GCF. And the GCF between 39 and 13 is 13. 13 goes into itself and 13 goes into 39. So you write your 13 down. And then they both have a g, and you use the lower power, which is g to the 2nd. Put your parentheses and then divide. All right, 13g to the 2nd times 3. 13 times 3 is 39. Remember, you have to add your exponents when you multiply, so this has to be g to the 3rd minus this one. You've got 13g to the 2nd, so if you've got your 13g to the 2nd out here, what do you multiply that GCF by to get 13g to the 2nd? It's just 1. 13g to the 2nd times 1 gives you 13g to the 2nd. And you use the minus sign because it's minus in the problem. And that's all there is to it. That is one easy lesson. Your assignment is, of course, IXL, Algebra 1, AA2. We're in the factoring section. This is the second lesson, AA2. Smart score of 80. Anybody have anything to say or any questions? When you do these video lessons, unless you have something that you have to do after this, I would go straight to the IXL and work it because while it's fresh on your mind. And then that'll get that math lesson out of the way. I'm going to go in, let's see, I have another class to teach, but I have some time. I'm going to go in now and try to get some of your grades updated so you'll be able to check later to see what you have. All right, y'all take care, and I will see you back live on Thursday. And remember, check your Teams, check your email every day. If you have any questions for me, you can send me a chat message on Teams, or you can send me an email, and then we can always do a conference call. All right, see y'all later. Bye.